I'm going to tell you a story about a time my brother and I crossed a line we were never supposed to cross. My brother was always the daring one. If there was ever something risky or weird to do, he'd do it, no questions asked. Me? I wasn't as fearless, but sometimes his bravery rubbed off on me. One night we watched a horror movie that was all the rage back then. The plot was classic horror, about a group of young people who start experiencing terrible bad omens after a trip gone wrong. You know the kind of thing. Objects moving by themselves, near-miss accidents, and people falling sick out of nowhere. All these bad omens followed them until the inevitable end. It really left me spooked, like the movie knew a little too much about fear. After the credits rolled, something unexpected happened. The screen went black, and this strange message appeared. It was a game, telling us it could reveal our death date. I refused. I wasn't about to tempt fate with a game like that and warned him against it. But he thought it was hilarious, something totally ridiculous, and decided to play along. The screen went still, and the date, December 12th, 2013, appeared. It unsettled us both for a moment, but he brushed it off, calling it a cheap trick. Life went on, and we almost forgot about it. But as the date approached, strange things started happening to him. He kept running into odd accidents that didn't make sense. First, he tripped on nothing and twisted his ankle. Then, a glass shattered in his hand without him even squeezing it hard. One night, a picture fell from his wall, inches from where he was standing. It was like the world was trying to make him pay attention, but he laughed it off, saying it was just a coincidence. Behind that tough exterior, however, I could tell it was really getting to him. Then came December 11th, 2013. We'd just returned from a trip abroad when we both started feeling strange. Our bodies felt heavy, our skin clammy. Fevers hit both of us out of nowhere. We were admitted to the hospital, and they couldn't find what was wrong with us. Just an unexplainable, relentless fever. But my brother, his condition was getting worse by the hour. By December 12th, he had slipped into this state I can't even describe. I was scared to even look at him. And the next day, the morning of Friday the 13th, he took his last breath. I was eventually discharged from the hospital, but the mysterious illness never fully left me. Even to this day, I still suffer lingering symptoms from it. That game might have seemed like a joke, but the truth is, some things aren't meant to be touched. My brother's daring spirit crossed a line that neither of us saw until it was too late. So, maybe next time you come across something that promises to reveal a hidden truth, something that dares you to push a button or play a game, ask yourself, are you ready to pay the price? Or is some fun just not worth what it could take from you? Because once you open that door, you can't always close it. And trust me, some doors shouldn't be opened at all.
Hey guys, please like and subscribe to Nightmare Narratives for true eerie and unexplained stories. It'll really help our channel grow.
I'm not crazy. I need to start with that because after what happened, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't believe me. But this is exactly what I remember, and I swear it's the truth. I'd also appreciate it if my name wasn't mentioned. I don't need people thinking I've lost my mind, or calling me out as some kind of attention seeker. Well, Thanksgiving was coming up and I had a massive project due. My professor had been generous enough to give me an extension, but the deadline was looming and I couldn't afford to miss it. The problem was my house. My family loves hosting Thanksgiving, and that meant constant noise. Debates over dinner, kids screaming, babies crying. There was no way I'd get anything done in that chaos. That's when I found the cabin. I'd been searching online for a quiet place to work and stumbled on a last-minute listing for a small rental about 45 minutes from home. It was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but I didn't care. The photos made it look clean and cozy, and it had Wi-Fi, so I booked it without a second thought. The drive out there was uneventful. The cabin was nestled deep in the woods, down a gravel road that wound through dense trees. While it wasn't completely isolated, the nearest house was still a 10 to 15 minute walk away. The place looked just like the photos, a simple one-room setup with a kitchenette, a small dining table, and a bed in the corner. The air was crisp and still, unnervingly quiet. but I chalked it up to being away from the city. I set up my laptop and got to work. That first night, things seemed fine. The Wi-Fi was decent, and I managed to get a good chunk of my project done. But as the night wore on, I started to notice little things, like the Wi-Fi randomly cutting out for no reason. I brushed it off as bad service in the woods, but then there were the noises. Every so often, I'd hear rustling outside, faint and inconsistent. When I looked out the window, there was nothing there. By the second night, the uneasiness had set in. I felt like someone, or something, was watching me. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see someone standing there. But of course, the cabin was empty. Then around 1 a.m., I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping at the window. The cabin's main window was right by the dining table where I'd been working. The sound was deliberate, like fingernails gently rapping on the glass. My stomach tightened as I tried to convince myself it was a branch or an animal. Summoning some courage, I got up, turned on the porch light, and peeked outside. There was nothing, just the trees swaying slightly in the wind. But then, something told me to turn off the porch light. Maybe I thought it would help me see better without the glare. I quickly flicked the switch and stepped back to the window. Just as I was about to pull away, there it was. From the faint light of the moon and stars, something moved at the edge of the woods. A massive figure stood there, partially obscured by the trees. It was tall, too tall to be human, with long arms that seemed to stretch down to the ground, its limbs slightly bent at the joints in a way that didn't seem natural. The body was covered in dark, rough and uneven skin, like charred bark, with patches that glistened wetly in the faint light. Its chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths, the sound a low, rasping growl. The head was monstrous, elongated and misshapen, tilting slightly as if it were studying me. I could just make out hollow dark pits where the eyes should have been. It didn't move for a moment, but I could feel the weight of its gaze, cold and suffocating, as if it were trying to decide what to do next. My breath caught in my throat as it started to move. Its long arms swayed unnaturally as it began walking quickly toward the cabin. My legs froze in place, panic rooting me to the spot. Suddenly, headlights appeared down the road. A car drove by, its beams cutting through the trees, and whatever it was bolted into the woods, moving impossibly fast for something so large. I had no idea what to do. Call the police? Imagine that conversation. They'd think I was crazy. I spent the rest of the night wide awake, jumping at every creak and groan the cabin made. I couldn't bring myself to turn off the lights or even close my eyes. I just sat there in the corner waiting for dawn. As soon as the first light broke through the trees, I grabbed my things and left without looking back. I didn't even bother locking the door. When I got home, I started looking up the cabin, trying to make sense of what had happened. That's when I found the stories. Accounts of strange sightings in the area, eerie noises, and figures lurking in the woods. No wonder the place was so cheap. I know how it sounds, and you don't have to believe me. But I'm telling you, I'm not crazy. Whatever I saw out there, it wasn't human. And I'm just grateful I made it out alive. Have you ever wondered if something or someone was looking out for you? I never gave much thought to fate or divine intervention before, but one morning changed everything. It started with my wife, Lisa, an upright, deeply religious woman who always strives to show love and goodness to everyone she meets. She's usually the early riser, always up before me to start her day. But that morning, she woke up pale and trembling, visibly shaken. She told me she'd had a terrible dream. Something about danger, though she couldn't quite explain it. Then, as if her body mirrored her unease, she became violently ill. Before I left for work, she insisted on praying over me for protection, her trembling hands gripping mine tightly. She urged me to be careful, and for the first time, told me she wasn't sure everything would be okay. I run a small business on the 7th floor of a 10-story building downtown. It's a family effort. Lisa helps manage things, and our son Eric and his wife Jenna work with us. Normally, Lisa and I are the first ones there, unlocking the office and getting things ready for the day. But that morning, nothing went smoothly. When I finally left the house, my car wouldn't start. Dead battery, out of nowhere. I had to jump it, which cost me 20 minutes. Then halfway to work, I spilled hot coffee all over my shirt. Frustrated, I turned around to change. By the time I was back on the road, I was over an hour late. As I was driving, Eric called. He sounded annoyed. He and Jenna had also been running late because their toddler, usually calm in the mornings, had thrown an inexplicable tantrum. It was so bad that they had to spend extra time calming him down before they could leave. When I finally reached the building, the entire block was chaos. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars surrounded the place. Smoke billowed out of the lower floors, and people were being carried out on stretchers. I parked as close as I could and ran toward the scene, my stomach in knots. I grabbed one of the bystanders and asked what had happened. "A gas leak," he said grimly. "Floor 6. It ignited and spread fast. People on the upper floors were trapped before they could get out. It's bad." The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the chest. The 7th floor, my office, was directly above the source of the explosion. If we'd been there on time, Lisa, Eric, Jenna, and I would have been inside when it happened. Later, I learned that several people didn't make it out, and many others were injured. The realization hit me hard. If Lisa hadn't been sick, if my car had started, if I hadn't spilled that coffee, we would have been there, right in the middle of it. All those small, irritating delays had kept us away from the building when it mattered most. Lisa, Eric, and Jenna all agree. Something beyond explanation was protecting us that day. Call it fate, divine intervention, or just unbelievable luck. But I choose to believe it was no doubt divine intervention. All I know is that we were spared, and I'll never look at a bad morning the same way again.